Imbriale back for another fun edition. I got to tell you something. This is really going to be a fun one because I have a guest with me today. And I know how much, you guys know how much I love having guests on here. And we're going to be talking about a very powerful way. And you might think, well, maybe it isn't as great as you. It's a very powerful way to really attract and convert clients in a way that, some people think it's old-fashioned, some people think it's passé, but I'm going to tell you something, it works. It's worked for me. I've got, when I published my book, I got a lot of clients off of that, and, I really should be publishing more, and Mike's probably going to tell me I should be doing that. So, Mike Capuzzi is my guest, and if you were at all involved in the Dan Kennedy world of years past, you know him as the Copy Doodles guy. He's moved along from that, and now he's doing bite-sized books, and he's been doing this now since 2007 and formalized Bite-Sized Books, the company, in 2019. But he's been coaching, he's been consulting, he's been working with small business owners, all kinds. And I'm really impressed by some of the business owners that he's worked with, some of the big ones, some of the small ones, and kind of everything in between. It's really fun to hear the stories and what a book has done for them. We're going to hear some of those stories today. And without further ado, let's bring Mike on. Mike, welcome to the program.
Hey, Robert, thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity. And I want to share a really quick, can I share a very quick story?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's get started. Get right into it.
You'll appreciate this.
Okay.
So I was telling you before we hit the record button, I was being interviewed on a gentleman's podcast this morning. He was in the UK. I didn't know him. Didn't know him. He asked me to be on his podcast. And we got talking. He was asking about my style of marketing. I go down the direct marketing route, which I know you're a fan of, and talked a lot about that. Obviously talked about books. Well, we did our conversation. He stops the recording, and then we're just saying our goodbyes. And he goes, and remember, he's in the UK. He said, when you were talking about direct response marketing, it reminded me of Dan Kennedy. I'm a huge Dan Kennedy fan. I'm like, really? So then I go and tell him my Dan Kennedy history. And I said, yeah, Dan was the guy that Dan and actually Bill Glazer really helped me launch Copy Doodles. He goes, wait, you're the Copy Doodles guy?
I love it.
And then he made the connection. He's like, oh my gosh, I forgot all about that. So
that's how I knew you, Mike. When you first reached out and said, hey, can you come on my show? It's like, oh, Mike Capuzzi, the Copy Doodles guy. I knew it immediately, right? You got that connection. He's the guy to go to if you want to do the Copy Doodles stuff. He's got it.
And it's still out there, Robert. We still, we're just 15, 16, whatever. I forget how many years now how old it is, but it's still out there.
Still powerful. Wonderful. I want to get started today. A lot of coaches have trouble with, attracting clients. You hear that all the time. Man, I'm a great coach. And they are. They are really some people that are coaching are absolute masters at what they do. But where they fail is in the marketing aspect of it. And I always tell them, what you need to do is you need to audition your talents, right? It's a little bit like you and I know the infomercial world quite well. And it's one of the things you see. If you can demonstrate it on video, then you go to an infomercial. Right? Then because you want to demonstrate it. It slices, it dices, it chops, whatever. You can demonstrate all of that. It works. Well, coaching isn't any different. People go, what are you talking about? Are you nuts, Rob? Did you lose your marbles? I say, no. Coaching's no different. Because if you can get up in front of an audience, if you can demonstrate your skill set, if you could live coach one or two people in that audience, they sign up. And I've seen this happen with my business again and again and again. People say, well, I signed up 4 people in the last year. I said, well, I could sign up 20 in 90 minutes. And they're like, no way. Yeah, just get in front of an audience. And, you can't always get in front of an audience, especially during COVID, right? There's a lot going on. So Mike is the creator of a lot of these books. And we're going to talk a lot about using these small, very easy to create, I'm going to say easy to create, but very easy to create books where it is literally an audition on paper. And when you say, well, it's hard to get clients, well, if you have something that's marketing you and allowing you to audition your talents, your skills, your abilities on paper, some people hire you just because you wrote the book. I got to tell you, it's really, Mike, you've seen this too, right? People go, well, Rob, you wrote the book, Motivational Marketing, so you must be the expert. Yeah, I am the expert. Right. Why am I the expert? Because I wrote the book, right? So it gives an instant amount of credibility. I remember when I first did the Motivational Marketing book, I hadn't even published it yet. And people were already like, well, you wrote the book. And there it is. Mike's got it in his hand.
I have a copy. I've got my copy.
Yeah, and it gives you instant credibility, and that resulted in a lot of business for me. And so coaches who are wondering, where do you get the clients from? Where do you get the clients from? The clients need you. There's not a situation that we're not in a time where the clients don't need you. They need you. They have to have your talents, your gifts, your skills. You've got to be able to make the connection. And it really is what you're doing is you're putting out there that you're the person with the answers, and what you're doing is you're attracting those people who have the questions. And when you put those two together, it's very easy to sign them up. There's no arm twisting. There's no, let me give you my offer stack. I'm going to give you the coaching session, then I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to have lunch with you, and that's worth $20,000. But you're going to get it today for just $495. You don't have to play that game. They come to you, and they say, "Do you take American Express?" Is normally what I hear from them. True, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's still very true, Robert. Now, there's a lot of layers to that onion, right? And we could talk about a lot of those, but without a doubt, publishing a book, and I'm talking a real book. We're not talking ebooks here. That could be a variation, but shouldn't be the primary mechanism. A real book that you can autograph, that you can mail to someone a copy, that they can get a nice package in the mail. That's what everyone should be thinking about. And yeah, books are still an effective tool for so many different reasons. I'm excited to talk to you about this.
Okay, let's go back talking about, because you mentioned ebooks, you brought that topic up. I didn't know we were going to broach that topic, but since we did, I think we need to talk about it. The difference between an ebook and an actual printed book on paper. I know we're killing trees, but what's the difference? Because everyone today is saying, well, I can just do an ebook then.
Yeah, well, and again, there's a lot of definitions of an ebook too, right? There's Kindle books, there's flip books, there's PDFs, and I'm not poo-pooing them. I use them. I'm sure you use them, but I think, if you're one of the benefits of writing and publishing a real book, whether it's a hardcover like your book was, whether it's a paperback book, there's something special about a physical book. I mean, I was kind of joking, but it's real. You can't autograph a PDF. And people will ask you, depending on the situation, to autograph their copy of the book, sign it. Again, digital books have their place. We use them for our clients, but it's not the main mechanism. There's something special about a print book. There's something, you, the author, should feel proud, when you get your first batch, when you hand them out. I mean, there's just that can't be replicated in the digital world. So I'm not a naysayer of digital books. I use them, but if you're going to go through the effort of writing quality content, you should write it in a way that it's going to be put together in a real book format, in my opinion.
And you're right, because you look at the physical book. I think our training from Dan Kennedy is make the package as big as possible, right? And it has the value when you can actually hold something, because people pay money and they want to receive something in return. And when they're just getting a digital download, they go, well, I just gave this guy money, and all I'm getting is what? Some bits? And is there a limit to how many there are? No, there's no limit. You can have billions and billions and billions of copies of that ebook out there. But when it's a hardcover book or it's printed in paper, it's more limited. It's more precious. And it's interesting, Mike, because you put the book out there, and I've signed a bunch of books over the years and done a lot of that kind of thing. And then what you find is years later, people come to you and I still have your book. I still have it. It's still on my bookshelf. So your name is always in their life somewhere. They don't forget about you.
Well, Robert, not to make this like a Dan Kennedy fanboy episode, but I've got my library over here. Dan takes up about a rack and a row and a half on one of my bookshelves. I think every one of his books, some old ones that he has. But here's the key thing. I still go, not only Dan's, but other ones that I have, I go back to them. So to your point, like, you read a book, and if it's a good quality book, it's not like, oh, I'm done. Certain books are that way, but books have a life. So, and if it's written about a topic that people need to go back to, again, that's one of the values. And I think taking up real estate in someone's office is kind of cool. Whether it's on their desk or in a bookshelf, on a book rack, that's kind of neat.
I'm waiting.
By the way, one other quick story. Oh my gosh. And I can find it for you if you want to see it offline. There was a video that Mike Koenigs did years ago, not that long ago. He was at Dan's basement in his house. You know, Dan had the famous basement in his house. And Mike's doing it like a day-long interview of Dan. And I forget where I saw it, but I saw it online. And Dan's standing, and I have been in Dan's basement. I've done a consulting day with Dan. And, you know, it's like a library. And anyway, standing in front of his bookshelf, no lie, Robert, one of my books is behind him.
Oh, wow.
And you can see it. It was so cool. As a matter of fact, I took all these screenshots on the live video. I've never used them like to brag about it, but Mike and Dan are standing there, and you can see my book behind him. It was the very first book I published called Dream Inc. On his bookshelf.
Mike, if you end up on Dan Kennedy's bookshelf, you've made it.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. I'm just waiting for the first person to come up to me and say, "Hey, can you sign your ebook?" Pull out a Sharpie and sign their phone. I don't know what you do. You know?
Yeah, I don't know if they'd appreciate
it's just not the same, you know. Let's talk a little bit more about the creation process, because I know people are hearing this. Oh, Mike, a book. Ugh, I can't write, because what we're thinking about is the way it was in high school, right? I was a little bit different in high school when the teacher would say, "Hey, Rob, write a 500-word essay or composition," I think they used to call it back then in high school. I would turn in 17 pages. And, you know, it's just one of those kids. Teachers hated it because, like, they gave them extra homework, right? They had to go correct it, read this whole thing. But
Wow.
not everyone's like that. Everyone, you know, some people, they think about writing, and it's like they can barely get an email out sometimes. And, you know, here you are saying, "You want me to write a book? How many words? How big?" So talk a little bit about that process, because I think that process is going to, you know, help people understand really what's involved here, because right now they may be thinking it's overwhelming.
And do you want me to focus specifically on the small book?
Yeah,
concept?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that, you know, I have an engineering degree from my college days. So I'm good at like looking at things, taking things apart. That's how I created copy doodles, really. I saw how people were doing handwriting on direct mail and stuff. I was like, there's got to be an easier way. And I reverse engineered and created my own system. Well, I've kind of done the same thing, Robert, with books. You know, I love books. I mean, I love the fact that you've written a real book, you know, hardcover, a lot of pages. But I don't know about you, but, you know, as I get older, I now appreciate more succinct, more, you know, pithier content. I'm not looking for a tweet, but I also am not necessarily looking to read a 300-page book, because typically I don't get past page 150 and then I'm like distracted. So I came up with this short, helpful book concept. I call them SHOOKs, so it stands for short, helpful book. And they're books that are meant to be read in about an hour by your ideal reader. And it's not meant to be the A to Z encyclopedia on your topic. It's meant to take a piece of your topic, a narrow slice of it, and really focus it. And this is a great thing for coaches. I mean, they can take a slice of their coaching business and really, you know, write a focused, short, helpful book on that. And Robert, I don't know what motivational marketing was, but a traditional business book is about typically 50, 75, 100,000 words, you know, 200, 300, 400 pages. A SHOOK is about 12 to 15,000 words. So your 17-page essay could almost have been a SHOOK. And, you know, they're about 100 pages. So they're, you know, I've got a couple here. They're real books. You know, they sit up nice on your bookshelf. But it's meant to be very non-intimidating. It's meant to really give the reader this, the ability to say, I'm going to read it, and then hopefully take the action that's outlined in the book, because these are direct response books. We can talk about that. So a SHOOK is a heck of a lot easier, Robert. I don't know how long it took you to write motivational marketing. I just interviewed a gentleman on my podcast the other day from all places, Tasmania, my first Tasmanian guest. Took him 7 years to write his first book. 7 years.
Okay, if I would have told the publisher it's going to take me 7 years to write the book, they would have said, out of here.
Well, it was self-published, right? So you went with a publisher, but it doesn't have to be that way. So, you know, a shorter book, as you can imagine, is less time for you to write. It's good for your reader. It's good for you, the author. And, you know, again, a long book, a traditional book has its place. But I tell you what, Robert, I would rather write 3 100-page books and have 3 books out there than one 300-page book these days.
Yeah, I agree with you. That motivational marketing was 16 chapters, and my promise to the publisher was I would deliver a chapter every Monday for 16 weeks, and that's exactly what I did. And then it took another year before they did all our editing and formatting and printing and everything else that they do on the back end. It took a year to get it out. So yeah, and it was a project. It was a fun project, I think, for a lot of it. But it was a project. And the editing, I think, was the part that was the hardest for me. Because I got to go back and relook at all my words. I've read that book maybe 5 times just before it got published. It's a lot of work.
Well, and if you don't mind me just jumping in there.
Yeah.
Again, in my world, I would say, motivational marketing is, quote, a real book. Hardcover, you went through a publisher. It was like, I don't want to pretend to even know what it's like to give birth, but you gave birth to this thing. A shook is a bit different, right? I always tell my clients, don't focus on perfection. Focus, I call it personality, not perfection. You'll never have a perfect book. I'd much rather my clients focus on, helping. I call it helping before selling, helping their intended reader. Let their personality come through. Don't worry, because so for our clients, Robert, we don't even quote edit. That editing process that you went, where they're moving stuff and telling you really how you should write it. That's not the thing we want to do. We want to polish our clients' copy, their manuscript, but really leave it in their voice. Because again, we're not trying to write a New York Times bestseller here. We're trying to write a book that's going to help somebody and gets out there. Because if it doesn't get out there, it's not going to help them. Help the intended audience.
It's very true. And then one of the challenges I ran into with the editing process was they took me out of the book. All the personality was gone.
Right.
They left the content, but they took me out. This is what I felt anyway. And this is kind of nice because you get to be whoever you want to be.
Yeah,
you don't have to pull yourself out of it. And I think a lot of it, when you look at hiring a coach specifically, it is the personality. The personality has to match. So, it's good that you can put it into paper like that, put it on paper and let that person feel it. A lot of people read motivational marketing, for instance, and they say, Rob, it's exactly like sitting in front of you and having a conversation. But it was even more so before the editing process.
Yeah.
So we maintained some of that, but it was even more so that way. So the magic of the small book is like, you know what? You're not going through an editor. Not that stuff's going to be removed. And I remember this is Wiley who published his book, and they gave me the rules, and it was a stack of sheets like this that I had to read to go through the rules. And you can't use she, and you can't use he, and you have to use they, and it just went on and on and on. And it was like, okay, are there any words left that I can use?
That was what, 16, 17 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, geez.
Yeah. I can imagine what it is now, right? Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, he self-published. First of all, he started with digital books. Then we became friends, and then I got him to start doing real printed books. Then he said, you know what, I want to do a real publish. Like, I want to work with a publisher, an agent, the whole spiel that you probably went through. The book took him a year and a half to do. But I remember him telling me, Robert, that he had a great name for the title, but the publisher didn't want to use it. They made him use a different title. And I'm thinking, wow, your book, and they're telling you're the author, and they're telling you now, and of course they have a very scientific formula that they know that other title was going to outperform. This guy was a very smart marketer too. So yeah, I have a more independent streak in me, and I feel like, I'm always willing to take advice, but I know what I want when I'm publishing a shook.
And and the other piece too is that you're right. They do work on a formula when you go with a traditional publisher, and it has to fit into a certain framework. And that's what that whole thing was about, the editing guidelines and stuff. It was all about fitting into a framework. And I didn't have a say on the title, on the cover. The title I did. I actually did come up with the title. It was in my proposal, so we used the title that was in the proposal. And you do have to fit into a framework. And again, I think that reflects on your personality. People look at that cover and they go, "Is this Rob or is this not Rob?" You know what I mean? And some people look at it and say, well, it's not. He'd be a little bolder than that. He probably wouldn't use clouds. And So yeah, I like the fact that you have a lot more editorial control when you're doing your own book. And tell me the process of this working with you, because I know you are the person who will guide somebody through this. If they're sitting there going, Mike, I don't know, writing, I type with one finger, I'm a hunt and peck kind of person. Is there an easier way to do it than having to sit at a computer and type for hours on end?
Well, there is. There's it's funny you asked that because I was just working on some content and I went back to one of my shooks, the 100-page book, and pulled out, there's, typically 5 ways where you can create the content for a book. So, you can write it. I like writing. So writing to me is very easy. So there's writing. There's obviously talking a book out now, which is a strategy that, some people decide they think it's easier. So you can either record a video, do it on your phone, transcribe it. You can take it verbatim, or the better way is to kind of massage it. You still need a writer or somebody to take the spoken word, which is different than the written word, and turn it into the written word. There's, rehashing content. If, you had published a blog, for example, for years, you could take blog content and turn that into the content. So repurposing content. You can hire a ghostwriter is another example. I mean, Robert, you and I both know some of the world's biggest, most famous business books were not written by the person whose name's on the cover. That's like a little secret. So, ghostwriting is an opportunity. Again, personally, I'm not a big fan of it, but certain people, we're working with a CEO right now of a big company, big company. And he's like, listen, I don't have the time. Even though it's a shook, I don't have time. I need help. So, it's not like you have to be sitting there clicking out keys. There's, that to me that's an easy thing to figure out. I think the more challenging thing, Robert, especially for, anybody, coaches in particular, is who am I writing to? Who am I trying to attract with this book? What do I want them to do? What do I want them to get out of it? Because there does have to be helpful content. What do I want them to do next relative to what you want them to do relative to your own business, your coaching business? And really just start thinking about that and focusing more time and energy on that versus how am I going to get it done?
Exactly. I mean, I've ghostwritten books in the past too. My first marketing job was working for a CEO, and he was just so busy he couldn't get it done. But I told him, I said, we need a book out there, and it needs to have your name on it. And I used to write for DM News. I used to write an article every single week in there for him under his name, ghostwritten for him. And I would do press releases and writing books and stuff. And yeah, you just take his voice, and got to learn. I actually ghost wrote for Tony Robbins for a while too.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
So yeah, if you can capture that voice, and I think one of the things a lot of people miss is like, we're all doing webinars, we're all doing live streams, we're all doing podcasts. It's like we're giving out this content. I mean, I could take one of my podcast episodes, 15, 20 minutes of podcast, hand that to somebody and say, here, transcribe this. Then we go through an editing process to polish it up, clean it up, and there you go, book done.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, for sure. Yep.
Let's talk about turning it into a marketing tool, because it's not just about the help, because at the end of every book, there is a waiting for the word. Call to action. There we go. CTA. Right. Yeah. So let's talk about how we transition into that, because coaches I think one of the biggest challenges we have as a coach is that we are going into this industry. And when I first got started, like, I kid you not, we went into a bar at night and we said, let's go find some people with issues. And we're going to coach it. We were just so in, and we get into that and we say, it's all about giving and giving and giving and being helpful and being loving and all the rest of that. And we've got that, and we forget about somehow I got to get paid. Landlord's not going to say, Rob, you've been really good this month. You've been helping so many people. Yeah, don't worry about rent. It's not going to happen. So we got to get the coaches into a mindset of like, there is a selling process, but it's soft sell. It's more an invitation than actually a sales process, right? So how do we make that transition?
I love it. First of all, I love talking to you, Robert, because Well, I think you nailed it on the head. First of all, so when I talk to folks that potential clients, and many of them don't have a marketing background. So when I tell them a shook is a direct response type of book, they're like, what does that mean? And then I go into my, what does it mean to be direct response? Well, I can tell you right now, Robert, I can go over to my bookshelves over here. I can grab, just with my eyes closed, 10 books. And these are nonfiction business books over here. I can grab 10 of them, and I guarantee 9 of them will make what I consider a huge mistake in 2022, which is they don't give interested readers a pathway to continue the conversation. Books are conversation starters, especially a shook, because it's a 1-hour conversation, me to you, the reader. And then if the reader's interested, and I'd love to say 100% of the readers are interested in what I have to say. They're not. At least they don't tell me that, at least. But those that are, remember Dan Kennedy always says, you can only worry about the people who are interested that you can help. The ones that are interested, if you don't give them a pathway, in a shook, we give 2 pathways, Robert, I could talk about that. But if you don't give them a pathway, then shame on you, the author. And a lot of very smart people that you and I both know make that mistake, and they continue to make that mistake. So a direct response book means, listen, the book has good, helpful content, but if you're interested in more, here's the next step. And I literally, all our shooks follow a very specific recipe, and the next step chapter is a fundamental chapter in towards the back of the book. So yeah, that's key. So that first and foremost, you have to give interested readers pathways. I'll be quiet for a second, but I do want to talk about the 2 pathways because I know you'll appreciate them.
Yeah, you don't have to be quiet. I'm enjoying this. And you're right about one thing. I just want to bring up one point here because, Dan Kennedy, we're Dan Kennedy students. I've been following him since 1989, and you somewhere around there as well. We've been longtime students of Dan's work. And he always says that if you don't give them the next step, you're doing them a disservice, although you feel like I'm selling. But if they like the content, they're going to want more. Where do they go? Right? Yes. You're smacking them across the face. It's like giving them the cupcake, but saying, you can't have the coffee.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And if you're, the days of being a book author, listen, the days of being any kind of entrepreneur, business owner, coach, and quote, hiding behind a facade of, I just think that's, I think those days are gone. Now, listen, I do personally have, I don't do a lot of social media and stuff like that. So I have certain things that I'm just not willing to do or interested in doing, but I'm not necessarily willing to hide and say, well, listen, I'm too good to talk to someone who's written read one of my books or something like that. So yeah, it's a key thing. And the 2 pathways, I'll just go down that route.
Yes, please do.
In our books, being a marketing guy, this, there's essentially, I believe there's 3 types of readers when they read one of our shooks. There's someone who, typically the majority is, this was great. I may do something, I may not, but they, you never hear from them. They're not really ideal clients for you. The other 2 readers are and can be and are, in my opinion. So another reader is someone who says, I really love what Robert has to say in this. I know he's asking me to schedule a call with him, for example, in the book. I'm not ready to do that. So we call that pathway the passive CTA. We call it the passive CTA, the passive call to action. So it's for the person who wants more from you, but they're not quite ready to take what we call the active call to action, which is the thing we really want people to do. So in my shooks, because we're trying to help others publish a shook, the active call to action is to book what we call a strategy call with me. It's a Zoom meeting with me, and we go through some things and we talk. So that's the active call to action. Not everybody's ready to do that. So the passive call to action, and it's not rocket science here, Robert, but the passive call to action is offering some additional content, some content that maybe my book alluded to, but didn't really go deeper on, and allow them to go download a bonus chapter or go allow them to download a video or a tip sheet. So now we're capturing name and email so we can have follow-up marketing, which, by the way, if your book's on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere else out in the world like that, you don't get those customers' names. So the only way you can find out who's buying your books on those retailers is to have some sort of call to, passive call to action. So those are the 2 calls to action we have in every one of our shooks for the most part. I have some authors who only want to have a primary one. They're not actually interested in building a database of emails. So, but yeah, those are 2 pathways. So as a coach, this is why deep marketing people like you and me, geeks like you and me, Robert, we go deep. You got to think about who your readers are, and what do you want them to do, and realize you have different readers who are going to be reading your book, and provide a pathway for each of them.
But Mike, my clients are different.
Yeah, well, that's good. I have never heard that.
Never, not once. Huh?
Yeah, no.
It's so
Well,
true. It's like when you look at it, you have to give people that pathway. I really like the idea of the passive call to action, right? So the passive call to action would be, you've got the book, I have an audio that follows up on this, or maybe there's a workbook, or maybe, I've done a webinar, come watch the webinar. There's that next step that they're going to take. Still not ready to buy, but they're going to take that next step. That brings them a little bit closer. It gets them on your email list, and now they're getting your weekly emails, and you can continue to build a relationship that way. But a book is a powerful relationship builder just to get started on it, because when somebody reads a book, they take the time to read a book, they remember you. I mean, they come up to you at the seminars. It's like, Rob, I've got your motivational marketing book. It was so wonderful. And they show them they've got all the tags in it and Post-it notes all over it. Can you please autograph it? It's like years later. It never goes away, which is really cool, because they do see you as the expert. And even though they don't buy right away, at that moment when they're ready, they'll remember your name.
Well, so much marketing media does not afford that type of conversation. Now, with technology, YouTube, podcasts, there are longer forms now that can get, really increase that know, like, and trust factor. But for years, books were it, right? And there was, a book was like, you can have a fireside chat. I mean, no brochure typically, no email campaign typically is gonna, someone's gonna, and I haven't started reading this yet, Robert. I just found it because it's like such a gem, right? It's not easy to find this book, but it'll end up on the stack next to my bed, right? Because I typically read at night before I fall asleep. I mean, think about that. There's no stack of brochures next to my bed.
Okay, careful on that one, because that one's going to motivate you. You may not be able to sleep, get the adrenaline going.
That'd be a good testimonial.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. I mean, that's why, in my opinion, a book can be so powerful, even in today's business environment.
Yeah, and I think it stands out now. It's a little bit like saying, hey, direct mail is dead, but you know what I got in the mail today? Nothing. You know what I got in the mail yesterday? Nothing. What I get the day before? One bill, right? There's nothing coming through anymore. And you want to stand out in a crowd? Well, that's a great way to do it,
This is our new brand. We haven't seen this one, Robert. I think it's our old one, but this is the kind of stuff that we send out. This is a box we send out to new clients, and it's got it's got my little picture. But like when this arrives in someone's mailbox unexpectedly, and there's a lot of cool stuff in here. I won't go into it necessarily, but first of all, this is not that expensive to do, and it's very strategic. It's got some things in there. But that's to your point, right? It's kind of hard to do that with 5 PDFs.
Well, you can send the 5 PDFs, but are they going to download them? And what you have most often is, I downloaded them, but I have no idea where they are. How often do you hear that?
Listen, I do it all the time still. I mean, I still download stuff, I'm like, and you're right. You're hot at that moment, and then, you kind of forget about it.
Let's talk about working with you, because this is your business, this is what you do, and you've certainly piqued my curiosity, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this as well piqued their curiosity about what's possible here. If you're interested in doing a book, what's the process? What does it look like to work with you?
Yeah, so the first key differentiator is you work directly with me. Okay, so I've been in the marketing game for over 20 years. Just Google me, excellent reputation. I've done a lot over the years, and I've decided, Robert, to keep it that way. I'm at the point in my life where I've done what I really wanted to do. Now it's like I want to do what I really just have fun doing on a daily basis, which is working with, smart business owners for the most part, ones that aren't pains in the butts, and helping them help the world by publishing these short books. So you work directly with me. It's typically a 8 to 12 week process, Robert. It can be faster. Our world record's 23 days from idea to printed book. Crazy. Wow. Oftentimes it's longer because life gets in the way, but we try to, I have a very methodical process. It's step by step to go literally from, Mike, I want to write a book on, we figure out the topic, we figure out the audience. I approach it like a direct response strategist would approach it. So there's a lot of planning, before we even begin writing the content, if that's what you have to do versus the other ways we talked about. So we do the copy editing, we do the cover design, we do the interior design. So it's an A to Z complete package. Help you with the marketing. I actually wrote a book, Robert. I'm not sure if I gave you a copy, The Magic of Free Books. I don't know if that was in the package I sent you. But
it is.
Yeah. So
I do have it right here. Magic of Free Books.
The magic of free. So that's important, right? Like this is not, and I should have said this earlier on, this is not about selling books. I mean, yes, you can sell them on Amazon and online. But this is about getting
distinction, Mike. That is the huge distinction.
It is a distinction.
You're not going to become the next Stephen King. That's not what we're talking about here.
Right.
This is a marketing tool. This is in order to build your practice, build your coaching practice. If you're a dentist, if you're a chiropractor, if you're a small business owner, I mentioned earlier, Mike, you've run this for so many different businesses. Give us some quick idea, and then let's go back into how to work with you of the kinds of businesses that you have worked with, and this does work for.
Oh well, listen. We have two offerings: Main Street Author and Worldwide Author. We call it. We just updated the name of that too. So Main Street Author are your local business owners, your doctors, your dentists, insurance agents, CPAs, chiropractors, anybody who wants to be what I call 5 mile famous. So they don't even need their books on Amazon necessarily, Robert, right? They need their books in their office. They need to be giving them out to strategic partners in their community. They need to be just marketing that book at a local level. Very smart, very effective. A worldwide author are people like you and me that have a worldwide audience. They typically are on Amazon and other retailers online. And, they're out there getting their book out there everywhere too. And again, yes, you may sell books, but the intention is not to sell books. You're looking to get that book out there into as many of the right readers' hands as possible. And that is a key differentiation point.
Good. So working with you, they start out and where they contact you, bitesizedbooks.com, as I guess is the best website. Yeah,
bite-sized books with a D, bite-sized.
Bite-sized.
I couldn't get bite size. I tried to buy from the guy, he wouldn't sell it to me. So bite-sized books, and there's a link there for a strategy session, Robert. It's I'm not a big hardcore closer kind of guy. It's a conversation, but if you're looking to work with a long experienced marketer who's going to really have your best interest at heart, and you're not sitting there by yourself, wondering what you should do next, what I should write.
That's the bonus working with you, right? Because there are a lot of people out there who are saying, we'll help you get your book published. The mechanics of it are not that complicated. You could figure them out if you wanted to.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is the power really is the strategy beforehand and afterhand, right? The book itself is, you can get it done. And, the question is, okay, well, now what do you do with it? Because now I've got 2,000 of these sitting in my garage. Now what? Right.
Right. Well, the good news nowadays. So my first book I published in 2007, I had 3,000 copies.
Yeah.
Because I had to get the price down to a certain level. You don't have to worry about these days. So now you're in smaller batches.
It's print on demand now. Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's the process. And at the end of 2 to 3 months, you have a book that you can be proud of. We talk about how to use it, and
it's
really
not
cool,
just
Robert.
a book you can be proud of. You have a marketing tool, and you can't lose
asset.
You can't lose focus on this because this can be used for years to come.
Absolutely,
right? And and you can get it reprinted. You can update it. You can do a version 2. You can and you can build upon it when you see it's working. And I think the most powerful piece, Mike, in working with you is the marketing strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not like you just got this book and you go, okay, what do I do with it now? And a lot of other publishers, they don't know because that's not their expertise. And working with you, you've got a Dan Kennedy background. You know a thing or two about marketing. You're damn right you do.
Right.
Yeah. That's definitely the win. Wow. Good stuff today. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up here?
No, and listen, here's the last thing I would say, Robert, again, and I appreciate it. You and I are, besides the fact that our last name's in an vowel, so we have that behind us, but I just appreciate all that you do and how you help coaches and business owners around the world. I would say this, if you think writing a book if it's a goal of yours and you haven't done it, you should do it, all right? If you haven't really thought much about it, I still think you should do it. There are people, and I'm talking to your audience now, there are people who need and who want and need to hear from you. They need to know that you exist. They may not find you on YouTube. They may not find you on Facebook, but who knows? But if you have this inkling that people really, truly want what you have, which I'm sure your folks that are listening do and watching, I really believe a short, helpful book can be such a valuable asset. It's going to help them. It's going to help you. And I would encourage everybody, whether you work with me or not, just do it. Just do it. And you can find my books on Amazon. I give the exact formula for our shook, so you can just go do it from there. If you want my help, reach out to me.
Yeah, you can certainly do it yourself. Like I said, that's not rocket science to do it, but the value here in not doing it yourself is the marketing strategy that comes, the planning strategy beforehand to figure out what the upsell is going to be, what the call to action is going to be, what the soft sell. You have 3 different ways to get them in there, 3 channels to move them to the next step. And then the marketing strategy afterwards. I mean, that to me is priceless because you can build, you can double, you can triple the size of your practice pretty quickly doing this the right way.
Absolutely.
Or you could spend a lot of money and spin your tires and get nothing done if you do it yourself, right? So better to be guided. Coaches know are
right.
The reason for us to be alive is what? To help others, right? And how do we do that? Well, we do that one-on-one coaching, but you can only do so much of that in a day or a week or a month. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a book and 10,000 copies are out in circulation? You'd be helping all these other people, which is really what we want. And when you get to a point, I always talk about this for the chiropractors, they always come to me and they say, yeah, I just want to grow my practice. I want to grow my practice. And I say, but that's not where the money is. And they look at me and they go, what do you mean, Rob, that's not where the money is? That's not where the money is anymore. 3 phases. Any business, 3 phases. Phase 1, education phase. You're not getting paid during the education phase, right? What are you doing during the education phase? You're learning. So you're paying them, right, to get the knowledge. Phase 2 is where most people are, which is now I'm taking the knowledge, I'm going out in the marketplace and I'm using it. I'm applying the knowledge. Not only are you applying it, you may be acquiring new knowledge, you're acquiring experience, you're seeing what works, what doesn't work. You're refining that little nugget of knowledge you got from college, and now you may be in practice 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. John Gray is a great example of that. He was in a family practice for 10 years. After 10 years, what do you think he did? He wrote a book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Where's all the money? Is it in private practice or is it in information? Right? So he became a multi-millionaire, worldwide name. Why? Because he sat in an office back in San Francisco all by himself? And he worked with 2 people at a time? No, he wrote the book. All of a sudden he's on stage, he's on television, he's here, he's there. That may be your path, that may not be your path. But that book opened up all those doors. If he didn't have that book, those doors would never have opened for him, right? So phase 3 of any business is when we take our knowledge, our experience, our skills, we package it up in some way where we can sell it over and over and over again. Coaching one-on-one is great. Coaching groups is great. Speaking at seminars is great. It's even better when your book is out there doing the coaching when you're sleeping or taking a vacation.
Yeah. And can I open up one quick potential can of worms?
Absolutely.
I just quickly, and it probably could behoove a whole other conversation, but just to what you were saying, Robert.
You and I, Mike, could speak for hours. You know that, right?
Yes. And I don't want to go too, but I want to put it out there because
Go ahead.
Someone might say, oh my gosh, I've got to learn more about this. To the point of what you were saying about creating content that can be leveraged over and over again, right? Where you're not trading the dollars for hours. That is a great goal to reach, right? To be able to, sell courses, sell books, whatever it might be. One of the things that we do for subject matter experts that have that kind of following, Robert, is we help them we create licensable books. Books that can be licensed by others in their program to be used quickly and easily. So there's a whole world out there on this licensable content. We do it in book format, where if you're a subject matter expert and you have clients or members and they want to be tied to you, licensable books are a very interesting strategy.
Very true, Mike. I have another friend who does IP stuff, and he talks about licensing all the time. It's really, really powerful. And it's a little bit, if you want to write the book and you don't want to have to do anything with it, you could just become a ghostwriter too. There's another opportunity for you. So there's kind of no end to this whole thing. Yep. Mike, I had fun.
Robert, I did too.
Awesome. Awesome. So bite-sized with a D, sizedbooks.com, or you saw Mike's lower third there. MikeCapuzzi.com is another
That's it,
website.
yes.
And you can find him there, and there's links to all his stuff. And follow his podcast, his Main Street Author. Still hasn't been rebranded?
Still, just for another week or so.
Just for another week. It's going to get rebranded. I know it's coming. Something new is coming. I'm excited about that. I was a guest on his podcast. He's a great interviewer. And kudos to Mike, too, because, you think about someone who writes books. Mike can get up there and speak. He's not afraid to be on camera. He's not afraid to put it out there, get in front of people and share this knowledge and share this information. So I'm going to ask you a favor. If you found that this was valuable, I know we're a little longer than we normally go, but that's okay. If you find this to be valuable, please share it with your friends and followers. Give it a thumbs up. Give it a heart. That helps me. That helps Mike. Get in touch with Mike, bitesizedbooks.com. Fill out the application. If nothing else, just have a conversation with him. It's enlightening. It'll teach you something. I know you're going to learn something just spending time with him and, see if this is something that you want to do for your business. Mike, thanks so much for being here today.
Robert, thank you.
I appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you all next week.